Okay, it says
There
live.
you are. You're
Thank
now
you
live.
very much. Okay, so we will start. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Take your choice. Everybody's good with it. Short.
And there were no deputations or presentations submitted.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
thank you. Would you like to approve the minutes from the previous meeting? Somebody want to do that? Yeah, John, Bob. Okay, so right away to your reports, Jennifer.
Okay. All right, so the senior door is still an issue, but the general manager of the Parks and Culture and Recreation has provided us with the name of another company that's more local, and we have contacted them. And Michelle, I think we're waiting to hear back for a specific date for when they can come in. And she's nodding her head. So that is, like many of the organizations and companies we're dealing with right now, they have staffing shortage. So that's why the delay is there, but that accessible button should be fixed as soon as they can get to us. We have set up a procedure for issuing QR codes remotely using curbside. So far that's going good. The Stayner branch opening is still pegged at May 14th. There's no interference with any other dates for this Stayner Community Hall. We're planning on, if the weather is good, having it primarily outdoors. Mm-hmm. And so Michelle is working very diligently on that. Okay, so we're still going with May 14th, which is the Saturday. I think our rain date is May 15th. And we're trying to be able to pivot on a dime, okay? Because we just, at this point, May looks good. Maybe in April, we'll see that it doesn't.
Yeah.
So we're being flexible. Yeah. I've registered you, Diane, and you, Mary, for the OLA Super Conference. It's not too late if anyone else wants to be registered, and all of the full-time staff have been registered. So the other thing that Michelle is working on is making sure that any full-time staff who are also covering branch hours will be able to attend during the regular sessions. If we have enough staff to allow that to happen. Okay, the performance appraisal for myself, probably tomorrow or the next day, I will send you out the forms that you need to complete. I have sent out my personal goals for 2022, as well as my self-evaluation. And I am recommending that the date that we do that as a separate meeting will be February 22nd. The clerk's department has advised me that they have no conflicts and would be able to manage the Zoom call for us. We would, of course, because we are public organizations, start out in an open meeting and then go into closed session because you'd be discussing personal information. Okay. Does that work with everybody else's time frame?
That date sounds fine for me. How about
That's good.
It's okay, Mary? Yep. Pam, is it okay for you? Oh, thumbs up. I see it. Thanks.
Yeah, works for me too.
Okay, that's fantastic. We had talked about or Bob had raised the issue of what looked like the water shutoff and what would happen with landscaping and paving. I have talked to the general manager for Parks and Rec, and he's assured me that what you had identified in those photos you sent me, Bob, is the water shutoff for the entire building, and it will not be covered up by either landscaping or pavement because the water department needs to be able to access it at all times. So everything around it might be tidied up a bit when we finish off the paving and the landscaping, but no worries about having it covered by anything.
Right.
Okay, if we go to the next report, the HVAC system is okay, well, this is going to be ongoing for a while until we really adjust to this. Unfortunately, the Parks and Rec general manager has been very good on being hands-on with this. So I went in the day that I prepared the CEO's report, and my office was just over 53 degrees.
Mhm.
When there are high winds, it affects whatever the hell they are on the roof, and the vents or whatever the technical term is shut down, and then the whole thing kind of shuts down. So we have to be very on top of what's happening with the roof ventilation system. But the more times, this really only happens occasionally. And now we've identified what it is. And as soon as we knew what the problem was or what it was related to, the contractor came in and adjusted it. Now, it's a big building, so it does not, the temperature doesn't increase drastically instantly, right? But what Michelle reminded me of is we have a huge fireplace. So we turned on the fireplace, and she and I independently worked fairly comfortable for the time that we were in the building at that time. And the temperature now is fine, right, Michelle? Yeah. So, but you're going to hear about the HVAC system for probably the next year until we get all the bugs worked out, by which I mean that we finally understand how to work it, because it's an incredibly complex machine. We have returned to curbside and virtual, and we did this when we knew that the schools were going to be closed. And in conjunction with the township, which also closed its doors. On Thursday this week, the senior management team is having an extra management meeting to discuss how and when we will reopen. And we are a separate body, but we do want to sync what we're doing with the municipality. And one of the things when we were talking about this before we closed at the last senior management meeting was, they were looking at closing. They hadn't decided, the CAO hadn't taken that decision just yet. But I said, there's no way that I can have 25 people in the Stainer branch and you can't have anyone in the municipality. I think, what does that say to the residents? It's just, it's like we're not getting along or talking to each other. And if it's not safe for the municipality, I'm sure it's not safe, for the libraries either. And there is a CEO listserv, and the question of who's going to curbside, who's staying open was put out there. I would say more than 60% of the public library systems in Ontario have responded. About half are open and about half are closed and just doing curbside and virtual. So we do have the meeting on Thursday. I know we're going to open at some point. I would assume that we probably won't open. The soonest would be the end of the month. Now we have a real problem in that, like the township, we're also working in teams. So we've segregated staff to ensure that if we do have an outbreak in one facility, the entire system is not shut down. People would still be able to access another one of our facilities. We are now down one staff person. And because between that and the shortage of staffing we had, just because we're doing that separation of staff and trying to follow what our health unit is advising everyone do, is work at home as much as possible, it will be very hard for us to reopen to the public right now with the constraints we're in. So I will be talking with the senior managers at the municipality on Thursday, and we'll try to come up with some ideas on how we can do it safely and ensure. What I don't want to happen, I mean, right now, nobody's crazy about curbside. It's a great program, but they want to come into the building. I mean, not everyone does, obviously, because some people are thinking, I don't want to go in there, and mix with other people. But it's better that people get up in the morning and know what's available to them than they come to pick up their materials. And because of a staffing shortage for isolation or quarantine, we suddenly have to close a branch. So we have to take that into consideration as well. So there's lots of balls in the air as we try to come up with a workable decision. But I just want you to understand that we're not the only library that's doing this right now. And even some of the libraries that have decided to stay open, they're not necessarily open at all their branches. Okay, so they may have 8 branches and only 3 of them are actually in-person service. So there's real movement. And I think a lot of what the libraries want to see is what happens when the kids are back in school. Do we see a peak again after they've been in for a week? What's going on? Something else that's come up at the township senior management is, and I brought this up, is N95 masks, because we know that the virus is supposed to be airborne. Should we be moving to that? Well, that's a great thing to do, but we have to ensure that there's a steady supply chain. It's no good mandating to anybody that they should use a certain piece of PPE unless you know you can continually access that. So the township human resource manager is currently working on that, trying to establish a supply chain before we even take the decision that staff should be using this kind of protection. And then we'll move forward on that as well. So that's where we are with return to curbside. There's no distinct, Bob, you have a question.
Well, one is just an observation about the N95 masks. They are available in the community, so it might be something we could consider is suggesting to staff that if they wish to avail themselves of it, that is probably better protection than the surgical masks or the cloth masks or whatever they happen to be using at this point in time. That we couldn't necessarily supply them because the township hasn't set that up yet, but just so they know that we believe it would be in their best interest to try to find them themselves if that's possible.
And we have actually obtained some, so there are some in each branch, but I have hesitated. First off, doing curbside, a lot of the times whoever's in the branch is working alone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as necessary. It's more an issue of when we do reopen to the public. But we really do, and they are in the community. I think the ones we got, we purchased from Costco, and 2 days later, Costco didn't have any in stock. Now they replenished the stock fairly quickly, but I think you're going to see as more and more companies move to N95 that there is a bit of a disconnect there. And I will make that recommendation, and I think what we will do is disperse what we have on hand to staff, and then say, it would be a good idea if you use these, and we are trying to get some.
Something that could be considered with limited supply, if an employee had 2 of them, they could wear one day, let it rest at home, and wear the second one the second day, sort of thing. They are pretty robust, and unless you were doing some physical labor where you kind of wore them out, I think that it might be better to use them in alternate days to extend the life of them rather than just wear them once and throw them away type of thing. Until the supply that the township can put in place is available.
Yeah, I will talk to Tammy about that, because that might be something that the Health and Safety Committee would like to speak to before we implement. But certainly there are ways to work around them, right?
Now, can I just go back to our closing and curbside situation? There has been quite a bit of discussions or flack or whatever on social media, and I don't think we should be driven by social media, but I think we need to be aware of it. People are talking about the fact that the library isn't open when other libraries are open. I think Wasaga Beach was cited as being one that's open, and Collingwood, another one that's cited as being open. So
half of the library, if I can just interrupt, half of the libraries in the county are not open. So they're pointing to the ones that are.
Well, they're pointing to our neighbors.
Yeah, but
fair,
you have to look across the county and not just.
Okay, don't get me wrong. I don't think we've made the wrong decision. I think our decision is correct.
Yeah.
But what I think we need to do is we need to put something up on Facebook to explain our position a little more clearly as to why we're doing it, so that someone who is being swayed by the situation that's floating around in social media would have a reference point from us that could see the facts instead of rattling around in that mess that's social media.
Mm.
Okay, we can work on something and get it up there, Bob. That's not a problem.
Okay.
It's a good idea.
Someone has just walked by my house. Okay, so I have been reelected to OPLA Council for this year. My term will start at the end of the conference in the first week of February. So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So I look forward to that. And in terms of the strategic plan update and review, there's not a lot of action here because again, you know, so much of the things we'd like to get to, there is no time. In terms of accessibility, as I've told you, we've got another service contractor coming in to deal with that button issue in the Stainer branch for the accessible button. Michelle and I are diligently working with our general contractor to try to correct or resolve the accessibility issue identified in the wooden shelving units at the New Lowell branch. Obviously, this is a priority for us, but not for him. So we're working on that. That should come fairly soon. And the final goal was, again, there's still time if you want to attend the OLA Super Conference. As Mary has pointed out in the previous meeting, they are recording everything. So even if you don't have the ability to attend it when it's happening, you would still have the ability to go back and review the material and see this session. And in fact, you could see a whole bunch of sessions you couldn't attend in the first place because they were on at the same time. So
Right.
Let me know. It starts February 1st, so I certainly need to know before then. And I think that's it for the reports, Madam Chair.
Okay. On to correspondence, just a thank you card from Michelle.
Okay, and thank you for the thank you card, Michelle, and our prayers and good wishes are for you and your family. I think I speak for the whole board on that note.
We didn't have financial reports provided.
There should be, if you go, the only financial report was the bank accounts report. If you go to the website, as soon as I had that information, I've updated and it is included.
Oh, okay.
So if you go to the website where you normally would pick that up, it's in there. You will see for the Clearview Public Library account a significant difference from the opening in December to the closing, because all of the grant money that comes to the Clearview Public Library goes directly to our bank account and not the township. That's a stipulation from the province. And then I have to cut the township the check and they put it into our budget. So there's a $25,803 adjustment that you will see. But other than that, and we are up about almost $500 in the Stainer Library Building Project account. And Michelle, I'm assuming that the majority of that was from the book sale you had in December.
And actually the bags as well. We sold a
And
lot of
selling
bags
bags.
over Christmas.
Okay. That's the lady who was making them on her own?
Yes.
That wonderful.
Does anybody know how she's doing during the pandemic?
We really haven't been, Connie was our go-to person with her. And so we really haven't heard anything, and we haven't had new bags for well over a year, which is fine because we had a lot of them and there for a while when we were closed and everything else, we weren't selling them. So now we had quite a number of them that it's great to sell them, and because we don't have storage space. So
We had about 72 of them, so they did go. Yeah,
Oh,
we're down to
good.
about 20 now, so.
Oh, good. Excellent.
I was just curious because I wondered, as a senior who wasn't able to get out much, I thought this might be a particularly unpleasant time for her.
Mhm.
And the only other thing I have to raise in the CEO's report is, of course, the review of library services by the county.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, Gail Hall, who was CEO for the Clearview Public Library, has retired. She's on vacation now, but her last day was last week.
Mm.
And something that she brought to the attention of the CEO's committee for the cooperative is that her immediate supervisor had requested information from her regarding physical collections in terms of how many times did these items go out. The county has a lot of different physical collections. It's not just books, and they don't just do electronic. They have a lot of material that we couldn't afford to purchase solely on our own, and they also buy formats that allow us to experiment with something before we make the decision to plunge in ourselves. And that's true for all of the county member libraries. Just the phrasing of the requests sounded like they didn't understand some of the aspects of this. So they also informed Gail that she would not be replaced by a CEO, that the library would be run by a task group. Now, the ministry has been contacted because that's a direct violation of the Ontario Public Libraries Act.
Mhm.
And the Simcoe County Library Cooperative is specifically mentioned as a public library in that act. The act requires that all public libraries that are recognized as public libraries by the province have a CEO. It doesn't say how skilled the person has to be, but they have to have a CEO in charge of the library. So that has been brought to the ministry's attention. In the past, when there were attempts by other public libraries to have co-CEO positions or run it by a management committee, the province has come in and said no. Now, why do we care what the province says? Well, your public library operating and pay equity grant goes right out the window if you don't comply with the requirements of the Public Libraries Act. And if you ever want to apply for any other kind of act, the province will also say, well, you're no longer a public library because you are not complying with the Public Libraries Act. So hopefully that will inform the county and they will revise their decision. The other concern we have is that the decision on how this will go forward is expected in February, which is very soon.
Yeah.
And some of the information that was requested of Gail was requested without considering whether she would have enough time to bring it all together, because a lot of reports would have to be run before she would be able to put that information together. So I don't know if they'll have all the information they need. And it also looks like, although the group from the county that was tasked with doing the review had approved or recommended to council that a modified status quo be the preferred option, it looks very much like there's an attempt to undermine that decision and come out with something slightly different that wasn't the recommendation. So I have sent out to you through email benefits for each of the individual public libraries in Simcoe County from being part of the Simcoe County Library Cooperative. Please read it. There are a lot of benefits that I think the public have no idea about, but are essential to how we run our libraries.
Mhm.
And there will be more forthcoming. The CEOs are trying to have a meeting with the senior staff at the county related to this issue and try to get a better idea of where they're coming from and inform them about the importance of the county co-op to us and the need to, maintain not that everything can't be tweaked, but there's a difference between tweaking and cutting the guts out of something. So when there's more coming out of the committee, I will let you know. But I think boards may have to get involved in the not too distant future, doing more than just writing letters. I'm not quite sure what we could do, but we've got to do something, because if we don't, we're going to find that 2023 is a really ugly year, both in terms of services and also budget. If the county can't do some things, then the individual municipalities will have to fund, if they want to, their public libraries to do it themselves. And I think this pricing will skyrocket,
Mhm.
not for the county, but for the rest of us. So, and that's about all I can say at this point. Yes, Bob, you had a question? And then Mary.
That report that you sent to us, was that something prepared in response to a request from the consultant, or was it prepared for the committee?
It's been provided to the committee. It was initially given to the consultant, but to ensure that the committee actually got the information, it was sent to the committee.
So the committee is made up of a number of the councillors from the various townships or various communities, but not all of them, as I understand it.
No.
So I'm wondering whether there should be a specific effort made to get that report, or that you sent to us, get that report sent to every council, so that there is maybe perhaps a better understanding that there are some serious consequences that may ensue if the wrong decision's made here.
That's a very good idea, Bob, and I will pass that on to the chair of the committee. She's the one who sent it all out, but I think you're right, and that the more members of council who are informed about the importance of what the cooperative provides, the better position we'll be in to ensure that it continues to provide it.
The other question I had was the committee is going to, it makes a recommendation to county council as a whole.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so that's where it really needs, the information really needs to be in the hands of the representatives of each of the communities who are on council, to make sure that they understand what they're voting on.
Yes, I agree with you. That's a good idea.
And I think not to belabor it, but I think if that letter is sent to each of the councils, that a strong message in the letter needs to be included to ensure that that each council takes the matter quite seriously. It's not just a report to be accepted and filed. It's something that they have to really consider when their representatives go to council, and understand the feelings of the community and councils, and those councils as a whole.
I think you're right, Bob, because public libraries are like apple pie, right? You don't worry about the apple pie as long as you still have it coming in.
Mhm.
But when somebody threatens to have your access to apple pie go, people get up on their hind legs. And so it is with public libraries. People are happy with their public library. They don't make a lot of noise or complaints. But when there's a threat, you can see the average resident get quite upset. And, to be honest, county councillors are elected, and they're not elected at the county level. They're elected at their local level. So they need to hear what their local residents are saying to them about what they value at the local level as well as at county.
Well, and they need to be informed at what an impact, great as in large rather than wonderful, an impact it's going to be financially. I mean, nobody wants to go to their council and say, oh, we have to have a bigger budget for the library because we can't afford all these things that the residents expect now, because we've had it for all these years because of the cooperatives, wonderful services.
Yes.
I wonder how much the public has any idea of what's going on. I think very little.
Very little at this point, because when the CEO's committee was working on this with the task force that's looking at this at the county level, our feeling was, okay, let's get the right decision out of them. I think they made the right decision, modify the status quo. But there seems to be a movement to do more than that. And I have raised this at the CEO's committee that, this is great. Let's contact the counselors. Let's do some of these things. But in the not distant future, we may have to get our members, our community members, to be informed about this and to get a little riled up about this, and to be the, if I go and talk to our county representatives in Clearview, it's one thing. If, we get 100 people phoning them or emailing them, it's something else. That their radar goes up a little higher. And if Doug was here, I'm sure he would back me up on that. So I think it is coming that we're going to do that. I would very much like it to be something that all of the CEOs are moving and all of the boards are moving in their municipalities, rather than we design something ourselves. Let's all, have the same talking points, the same elevator speech, and push it out at the same time. So Bob, I do think that's coming very soon.
Well, February 22nd, you said, was the...
No, that's when you do my CEO review.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, what was the date?
I don't have a date for when they're going to present this to council, but it's supposed to be in February.
In February sometime. So that doesn't give us a lot of time.
No,
And
but the CEOs are meeting on Monday. So some of the questions we have here, I can bring up, and I should have some answers by Tuesday morning.
Jennifer, I think if you brought it down to the dollar value, like give it to councils in terms of how much it's costing or not costing us to have these services that the cooperative is providing to us.
There were quite a few figures in that. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there were
report.
some.
That really jumped out at me as something that's so quantifiable, and rather than, because
Exactly it.
part of the problem, I think, with the service provider, as we all know in libraries, is just that, people see us as, as a, I don't know, soft services, as nice to haves. They don't look at what it costs in dollars and cents. And so, except when it's their budget that's being raised, and that's what if we, have our way, we're going to avoid that, right? Nobody wants to have their taxes raised to that extent, or to not have the services.
Yeah, and that's how you have to put it to councils. It would cost us this much more in our budget to provide all these different services. Because
just the simple
they might not
stuff
be
like
happy about that.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, quantify it all. Yeah. Like,
I also think this was what I wanted to say is that this is a document that we should be putting in our booklet that we give to board members, library board members, as part of the information that they have, because I didn't know most of this information about the cooperative, and
Well, we didn't
it's
have the
really,
information put together. That's why.
yeah,
it wasn't-
but now that we have it, we could make sure that that's inserted into the
Okay,
book too,
yeah.
as long as
As long as
things
it's
stay
still
the
there.
same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, right now it's being threatened, so.
But you're right.
Yeah.
That's a very good idea, because then you'll have a real understanding of what the cooperative does.
Yes, yeah, hopefully we keep
mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Jennifer, you said that the CEOs are getting together shortly for a meeting.
Yes.
About this, yeah.
I think if I had a seat at that table, what I would, the message I would probably want to bring is that I would like the group to come up with a message that could be distributed to local newspapers, for instance. We can't inform the public without the media. And each of our communities has local newspapers, or most of us do. If a message was sent to them to say that their local library is under threat of the loss of these services, if we don't maintain the integrity of the county library service, that would be something that everybody would have the same message going out.
Mhm.
So we keep the message consistent, but it would be something that could be effectively
Mhm.
broadcast to the public. Because the public the public have a right to know.
That's
Yes.
right.
It's their service.
Yeah.
You know, we provide the service to the public, but it's their service, really.
Yeah.
And if it's threatened, if the deterioration of that service is threatened, then that's a threat that they need to be aware of.
Mhm.
Okay, no, that's a good idea.
Yeah, bring that up to the meeting that you're going to on Monday.
Okay. And other than that disaster,
Mm.
that's it for me.
Is there anybody else would like to bring some new business forward? Looks like no. Okay, so short and sweet, wasn't it? All right, I guess we will entertain a motion to adjourn then. Somebody want to make that, Mary? Pam's back. You've been there all along, we know.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess we'll see everybody on the 15th and then the 22nd. Right?
Great.
Okay, thanks very much,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Everybody.
Everybody else, stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.